things are in Bush 1.
Okay.
So the question isn't, you know, do we have clarity at the moment? We do. I think everybody's got clarity.
But let me follow up on this, though. All right, I know you don't want to...
That's the word I want is follow up.
You don't want to harpoon...
These guys
all right, you don't want to harpoon you guys in Washington who you work with.
They know who they are.
They know who they are. I'd like to know who they are, and maybe you'll tell me someday. I'll squeeze it out of you. But anyway, their rationale for not wanting to do what you just said you wanted to do was what? It's not worth the trouble. You just said Colombia wouldn't have done anything about it.
I'll give you the quote. We don't want another Vietnam. So
what does that mean? I mean, you go in, you blow these things up, and
it's trouble, Bill. It's trouble.
Is it the New York Times editorializing? What kind of trouble is it?
It's partly that. It's partly you have to explain yourself. It's partly you have to go into a long defense. It's partly you have to make a lot more trips, a lot more work. You know, an analogy from the world of education. If you got a student who brings a knife and slashes somebody up and you throw them out of school, you got to deal with lawyers, you got to deal with Civil Liberties Union, you got to deal with the newspapers. If you just give them counseling, you don't have to deal with anything.
All right. So, I mean, it makes me angry, and I'm sure most people watching today are just absolutely furious because you can take that tenet of the drugs that you just described very, very explicitly to us and bring it over to the terrorist action. We don't want to go into Afghanistan to get Osama bin Laden because then the Taliban government wouldn't like us, and we'd have to deal with France condemning us and some other people editorializing. So let's just let it go. And in the meantime, now we have more than 10,000 people dead, and that's what it all comes to, right?
Well, yeah, you know, I noticed in your last segment you talked about economic reasons. I think they're there. By the way, you've heard all the statements, Mr. O'Reilly, about not just the terrorists, but the countries that sponsor them and support them.
Right.
Supposing we find out that a sponsoring country is China.
Yeah, I got it. Now, listen, I want to hold you over. We got a break now, so some of our Fox stations can go to their local news. But Mr. Bennett will sit tight. We'll get to him right after this.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're back. So if I know what you're saying. There's a kind of a bureaucratic paralysis in Washington that most regular Americans are not aware of. They hear the rhetoric. We hear the rhetoric. And we feel that once these people get into power, into office, that they're actually going to solve problems. But I don't think there are that many problem solvers, Mr. Bennett, in high positions of power in this country. Am I wrong?
There are some, and I don't indulge in the notion that, you know, as soon as people come to Washington, they become corrupt. There are honorable people in this town. You know, there's a conservative assumption, which is that the people are right and the people in government tend to be wrong. I don't buy that. I think a lot of people, when they get here, they are more worried about reviews in the New York Times and whether they get invited to the Kennedy Center than doing the right thing. But I don't buy the notion that the people are infallible either. I learned that during the Clinton administration, if you will, if at no other time. There's a big question before both the leadership and the people, Bill, in this incident, which is the posturing last night and the remarks last night of many people were fine. The moment of moral clarity is here. But this is going to be a tough road to hoe. This could take some time. This could cost some money. And if we go after these guys, and I mean all of these guys, and go after them seriously, they may fight back. They may hit us again. Now, I've heard some people in the street, most Americans, I think, are pretty clear on this, at least today. What happens when it starts causing a lot of inconvenience? What happens when it starts causing more money? What happens when we get another attack? I did hear a couple of people today say, depressingly, well, you know, maybe we should just get out of this whole Israel thing, stop supporting Israel. If we didn't support Israel, maybe these guys wouldn't come after us. So they're tests for all of us. They're tests for the leadership, and they're tests for the American people. But I would insist the major problem isn't economic. The major problem is moral. It's a moral confusion. I was on a show earlier tonight with a journalist, a well-known journalist, and I said, well, at least we know what's right and wrong, and at least we know good from evil from this. And this guy said, well, to us, we're right. To them, they're right. Now, if that's as far as you can go, if that's as far as your moral, vocabulary goes or your moral depth goes, we're finished. Because if you can't see that that's evil and that we have to be so clear, so unambiguous, so decisive about defeating that kind of evil, we're not in the game.
All right. Well, that's a very good point. I wrote my column on that, which is going to come out tonight, on the exact same thing, that evil is well-defined. It's well-defined. It's causing pain and destruction, and you can rationalize it any which way you want. Now, we have become a nation of rationalizers and excuse makers, have we not?
Yeah, and I think probably the worst thing is this notion of moral equivalence. Well, they have their beliefs. I mean, I've heard this today. Well, they have their beliefs and we have ours. Well, no, it doesn't work like that. We believe in the rule of law. We believe in the sanctity of human life. We believe in due process. We believe in civilization. They do not. They are haters. They are killers. They are animals. And they are not to be accorded the same, their beliefs and views are not to be accorded the same merit as the beliefs of decent and free societies like the United States and Israel. And this is fundamental. And if we don't get this, if we can't stand for the proposition that the things in which we believe and the institutions and principles which animate our institutions aren't better than these institutions of hate that these people construct solely for the purpose of hurting and destroying the great Satan, which is the United States, we're not in the game.
All right. Well, we saw the same mirror 50 years ago with Germany, the Axis powers in Europe and Japan. We saw the exact same thing. It was aggression. It was slaughtering innocent people for the sake of the fatherland, and for Japan, the sake of the emperor. It was exactly the same. There was no difference between Hitler and Osama bin Laden. They're the same person. Now,
right.
We rose up then, and we defeated them.
Right.
Are we going to do it now?
Again, today, Bill, maybe. The language I heard today was these guys have to be brought to justice, we need to bring them to court, and so on. When we rose up in response to Pearl Harbor, the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, did not say we will bring them into the International Court of Justice.
And that's why you want the war declaration.
We will bring them to their knees.
All right, all right.
But see, we have become so tied up. But
Mr. Bennett, let me just stop you there. Let me stop you. We're going to hold you over, and that concludes the first half of the fact. We're back. We have to do that. I want to tell Bill Bennett and the audience, Bill Bennett in Washington, the audience, we have to do that because the Fox broadcast stations are taking the Fox News Channel feed all across the country, and some of them go in and out for news coverage, and that's why we have to have the animation and to break back and forth.
Sure.
So we are talking to Bill Bennett about the nation and how the nation's going to change, and all kinds of moral imperatives that are now in our laps. They're not theory anymore. They're here. And they're here with a suddenness that is frightening and also painful because of all the people who are suffering, because of people who were killed in the terroristic bombing. I want to bring in Colonel Robert McGinnis, who's also in Washington. He's with the Family Research Council and a security and military expert. So we have Bill Bennett in Washington. We have Colonel McGinnis in Washington. And we are now going to take your calls. So you can start to call now and ask us anything you want. You can ask me a question, or Mr. Bennett, or Colonel McGinnis, and if you just want to make a general statement, then we'll bat that around. All right, gentlemen, you're ready for the callers? We have full phone banks, and there's the number on the screen there. We hope you can get through. All right, Jason from Iowa, what say you tonight?
We're now beginning to have conversations about the appropriateness of target and intensity of attack. Given that thousands of civilian Americans have been murdered, coupled with our knowledge of confirmed countries that are currently promulgating, either through training and asylum, terrorist activities, why is anyone expecting, or are we anticipating to give, a rational response? Indeed, why are they not simply expecting the worst?
Well, why are they, the countries that are harboring these people, expecting the worst, or why aren't we expecting the worst?
I think the question functions and is important for both of us, but immediately, why aren't the countries harboring them? Those suspected terrorists, confirmed terrorists, promulgated countries.
Mr. Colonel McGinnis, why don't you take that one? I mean, it's a good question from Jason. Certainly the Taliban government in Afghanistan has got to know that their hours are ticking down here. They've got to know that, and Osama bin Laden had to know that this was going to come, that his life is on the line too. They don't care, or what?
Well, clearly, Bill, we have a host of nations, Iran, Iraq, Libya, you've mentioned others, perhaps Syria, have these training camps. They've been doing this in our face. We've known it for years. So has virtually anyone else that's been alive for the last 20, 30 years. So they should be preparing this evening, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, for some sort of U.S. action. Now, whether that action should be to go after the Taliban until we know a little more conclusively. But as your profiler said, we're beginning to gather some pretty compelling evidence here. And bin Laden's DNA is all over this operation.
All right.
And we do have at least 20,000 lives in New York.
Yeah, somebody's going to pay.
Buried.
And bin Laden had to know that it's going to be his head. I mean, his days are numbered. I know.
Well, but there are others also as well that we ought to be attentive to. There are hundreds of groups, and in many cases, bin Laden recruits them for his nefarious activities all over the world.
Peter in Missouri, what say you this evening?
This has been an attack on our freedom. We shouldn't have to change our way of life with new laws and regulations on our freedoms. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to just eliminate the threat. Next time they won't use airplanes, they'll use some other form. They just need to be eliminated.
All right, but Peter, are you against tightening up the airline regulations and security, and that's going to cause everybody a lot of inconvenience?
Yes, I am, because that's exactly what they want.
All right, Bill Bennett, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm for regulations that aren't mindless. I mean, there's two questions you get asked every time you go up to the ticket counter. I'm not sure what good that does. I'm sure anybody can answer those. I don't know that, by cutting off the curbside check-in, you get much. I don't know why we can't arm our pilots. Most of them are former military. I don't see why we can't arm them. I don't see why we can't have uniformed or non-uniformed plainclothes marshals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for the Sky Marshal thing. That's going to be introduced in Congress tomorrow. I'm for Sky Marshals, and I'm also for security so that nobody could get into the cockpit. I mean, how difficult is that?
Right, lock the cockpit and also train the flight attendants.
Right, but
we're also all on warning. I mean, American citizens are on warning, and I would hope that, I think there was probably some incredible heroism in the skies over Pennsylvania.
Oh, sure. I mean, there's no question that flight was headed someplace else and didn't make it. But Peter has a point in the sense that, I mean, if they're going to ban all carry-ons and punish the American people, that doesn't seem to be right.
The only difference I have with Peter is I don't think you can do it all at once. I think we should be strong. I think it should be disproportionate. I think they should know. They should be in fear of this, and we should knock their heads off.
Yeah. All right.
But I don't think that ends it. I don't think that ends it.
No, Peter wants to knock he wants to knock their heads off, too. Let's go to Renee in Texas. Renee, you're on The Factor this evening.
Yes, my comments directed to all the criticism yesterday about where the president was when he left Florida. I didn't want to know where he was, because then most likely nobody else could find him either.
Well, I'm with you, Renee. I thought that criticism was foolish and dumb. And if I'm the president, I'm going to listen to the security experts. Colonel McGinnis, I mean, come on, all right? You got to listen to your security guys. This isn't a macho display, is it?
Yeah, Bill, it was terrible when we had cameras following the president into a bunker in Omaha the other day. We have secret facilities all over this country in which we can place our officials, protect them from these type of activities. Let's be a little more respective of our leaders of the situation. Give our authorities the opportunity to do their important job.
I mean,
they'll protect our interests.
Yeah, I think that the politics now goes away for a while. I mean, I'm not going to criticize the president. I'm going to watch and see what he does, why he does it. I'm not going to criticize his speech, his tone, where he goes, what he does. I'm going to give the guy a break.
Bill, can I dissent a little bit?
Sure.
Just because I was quoted in the New York Times somewhat inaccurately on this early in the day, I thought, I didn't like the idea of the president being run all over the country. It looked a little scattered to me. We find out about these threats, and it's obviously very serious. I think the president should listen to what the Secret Service says about in the assessment of the threat, but I don't think they decide. He decides. And from everything I heard today, Bill, the president went against the advice of some of the Secret Service.
Yeah, and he came back. They wanted to put him in NORAD. They wanted to take him to Colorado.
That's right. Their job is to protect him.
Right.
His job is larger than protecting.
Yeah, he's got to lead the nation.